Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. I move to call to order this Fairfield Township Board of Trustees meeting. But first, I move to designate Noelle Sizemore as our clerk pro tem for this evening. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Sizemore, will you call the roll, please?
Trustee Harkemeyer,
Here.
Trustee Birding,
Present.
Trustee McAbey.
Here.
Please rise. We have with us this evening Pastor Cecil Day of the Lighthouse Church, who will lead us in the invocation, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, we thank you for your blessings. We thank you for our community. We ask, Father, that you help us to have a spirit of service for one another. And we may do what we can to take care of one another's needs and to live in harmony, to live in community together. We ask for your wisdom and guidance throughout the meeting this evening. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business tonight is a hearing in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 715.72, regarding a joint economic development contract between Fairfield Township and the City of Fairfield. I call the hearing to order.
Just very briefly, if I may, the Ohio Revised Code has a provision, 715.72, that discusses how to pass and discuss a joint economic development district contract. In that section, it talks about a public hearing, and in accordance with that section, the documents relating to the JED contract have been in the fiscal office for the last 30 days, actually more. And according to the statute, there'll be a public hearing to allow for public comment and recommendations on the contract and district. And the contracting parties may include in the contract any recommendations prior to approval of the contract. So I think we're going to begin here with a presentation from Mr. Geis. And then after the presentations are complete, if the public wants to make comments, according to the statute, they have the right to do so.
Mr. Geis?
Thank you. It's an opportunity, or I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the administrator. Really, we're going to talk about a JED that the board saw once before. This is a project that sort of began in earnest several years ago with Duke Realty, and Duke had a plan to develop the property with a series of spec buildings on that. They performed with one of the buildings on that. The board was prepared to move forward with the JED. They actually created a TIF in relation to that project, but Duke Realty decided that they didn't want to go forward with the project, and the project really languished in that. So the property was available, and then Alnire Inc. Came along, and they saw an incredible opportunity with that site. There was, as the board has seen in recent times, there has been a very big demand for flex space, industrial space, and commercial office in association with warehousing and industrial space. And they have a wide breadth of clients in not only in the Cincinnati area, but within the region, and particularly in Midwest United States in that. So they took over the project, and they assumed a lot of the contracts for the land purchases that Duke Realty had. And so that's where we are today. This is a project that we've been talking about in Fairfield Township for some time. And I think that the opportunity to partner with NIRE on this, because of their ability to perform, their ability to find clients, their ability to develop sites in a Class A feature, is something that the Board of Trustees and the region really will benefit from. So we're really here tonight to talk about the JED and just that portion of it in this hearing. So the reason we have this is, as everyone knows, just a brief history that, Fairfield Township is a limited home rule township, and we have the ability to do certain things, the creation of non-criminal offenses, to govern ourselves more in a municipal function than a traditional township, hire an administrator, and also hire a law director. The JED in itself is Mr. Barbier said, is by statute in Title VII of the Ohio Revised Code 715 that gives the Board of Trustees the opportunity to partner with a municipal corporation to allow for an earnings tax on a particular parcel. And that's why we're here this evening. So the Fairfield Township Joint Economic Development District 1 contract, there was a first JED created in 2009, and it was deemed inactive in 2017. Tonight we have the proposed action that the city of Fairfield last night, as I understand it, approved unanimously on behalf of the city by ordinance. The JED board is created in this process would include 3 members in that. 1 member would be selected by the city of Fairfield, 1 member would be selected by the Fairfield Township Board of Trustees, and 1 member would be selected by the majority of the other 2 members in that. JED boards can have they can be of various sizes in that. There's the ability for the JED board at some later time that they could increase the size of that, but there's a minimum requirement that at least 3 board members be present. What's represented on the monitors now is the district that is to be created in that, and the proposed development is really the area that's shaded in what appears to be purple there for the most part. In that, future development would occur in the area that is shaded in green. And NIRE is actively working on including that as part of the project in that. What this project will consist of is really about a little more than 83 acres. And it will be a series of buildings in that. The first proposal is going to include 3 buildings. 2 of those are guaranteed. One we'll call a large building of about 500,000 square feet. Second will be a smaller building, which is about 312,000 square feet. So in total, Fairfield Township is going to have more than 800,000 square feet of new office and industrial space. Generally speaking, there'll be flex buildings. The overall value of those 2 first projects will be more than $50 million. We've provided some information to the Board of Trustees that shows some values on that. And all those values were very conservative in that. And the values that were representative were in upwards of $36 million. And really what we wanted to do is we wanted to represent what the hard goods cost of the facilities are going to be. So that's generally about 80% of what the hard goods cost of these 2 buildings would be in that project at $36 million. In today's market, we anticipate that the revenues, the values of these buildings are going to be significantly higher. I know that, NIRE's here, a representative from NIRE is here tonight. If they could build these buildings, both those buildings for $36 million, they would be thrilled. In today's environment, that's just impossible. And every day that we tick off, those costs increase. Not only do the cost of construction increase, the cost of the earth moving in that, and as the board is well aware, this site had some significant site issues associated with it. There were floodplains that had to be addressed in that. There was wetlands that had to be addressed in that. And there are some significant improvements to the infrastructure that need to be addressed as well. All those things are consideration in this entire process. And we're really talking about the JED in this hearing, but this whole development is more than just the JED. We have a TIF that's associated with that. We have a development agreement with the developer, and the schools are a vital partner in this. From the very beginning of this, when we started this with Duke and then continued this with Nair in this project, the schools have been intimately involved in this entire process, and they have really structured part of the incentives that are accompany this JED agreement. And without the cooperation of the school district in this project, we wouldn't be able to bring this to the Board of Trustees in Fairfield Township. And the ancillary impacts to this, not only will Seward Road be improved, and Seward Road will have a series of improvements that are going to be completed in 3 phases in that. There's also the opportunity to, again, partner with potentially the Port Authority in issuance of debt in this project to pay for part of that. It's going to be partially funded by the TIF revenues in that. But this is going to have a regional impact to that. It's going to bring hundreds, if not thousands, of new jobs to Fairfield Township in Butler County. And that's going to not only increase the livability standard in the township, but in the entire region. And as you've seen in a couple of things that have occurred recently in Fairfield Township and in the region, that you're getting more restaurants, you're getting more entertainment, you're getting more diversified housing stock in here. And all of these things lead to that, and they all build upon all of those things. So it's important in the consideration of not only this JED presentation to consider the specific deal that is relative to this project, but the overall impact that it's going to have to the Township of Fairfield and Butler County. This is a representation of the site in that. It shows really the road, the proposed buildings in that. Again, the site work has already started on that project, and they are in earnest in developing that. So long-term benefits in that. With this project, you're going to get the improvement of what really has been a parcel that has languished over a period of time. I mean, it's been a farm, and it's been a nice farm, but that's probably not the highest and best use for that land in Fairfield Township. Now you have the opportunity of a more than $50 million investment to that site, bringing new jobs, quality jobs, to that entire, to Fairfield Township and the entire region. One of the unique things about this project and the JED agreement and the negotiation that has occurred in this whole process is that there is a minimum service revenue that's associated with this project, and it's based upon the square footage. It's not just based upon the number of jobs that come to the area. There's a coefficient that's used. It's 0.234 per square foot of each of the buildings in that is going to be the baseline for the revenue that the developer has agreed to make minimum service payments to the JED in that project. If that number is not reached in that, the developer is required to make up the difference in that if they want to receive the other benefits associated with the project. So in essence, the township, the JED project is going to net, or is going to gross around $190,000 a year in that, with just the first 2 buildings, the minimum amount for those first 2 buildings. I've been doing this for a while, and this is the first project of a JED that I've ever been involved with where there's going to be a minimum baseline for the number of jobs that are going to be created and the minimum value that the JED is going to generate in that. In this project, in the JED agreement, Fairfield Township is going to receive 75% of the net revenues in that. the city of Fairfield will receive 25% in that. And as we talked about, there'll be more than a $50 million investment in the overall real estate on that property. And that doesn't go away. So even if, the building doesn't see, the same number of jobs as we would hope, or more jobs than we're anticipating in that, the township's still going to receive that minimum service payment, but they're also going to have more than $50 million of new investment in the community, which I think is very important. And that signals to the entire region how vibrant and welcoming Fairfield Township is, and their ability to partner with the city of Fairfield and with Butler County as it relates to the economic development. And we've talked about some of these things, and again, the biggest thing I can say outside of the project is, you're going to get the road improvements to Seward Road, and we've talked about those before, that there's a need for those to occur, and this is going to be the stimulus for that. It's also, I think, important to note that is the township continues to move forward. The relationship that they have with the adjacent communities and the school district is critical for the well-being of the township. Again, with this is just another example of how Fairfield Township really has become a regional partner and a regional player in this. You've already partnered with the school district on the sale of land that you had. You offered that to them. You said you went out and sought them and said, we'd like to have a school in that particular area. You've reached out to the library and said, we really would like to have a new library in our community, and you're going to do that. And this is just another example of your willingness to cooperate and not just live, within the confines of Fairfield Township, and to expand upon the opportunities that you have, not only within Fairfield Township, but outside of Fairfield Township, which will provide sustained revenue for your community. So with that, I'm open to take any questions that the board may have as it relates specifically to the JED or the project in general.
Well, thank you for the in-depth presentation. And, obviously I followed this through the Duke and then through when we were trying to do this deal through the schools as well. So I think this is going to be great for our community. I think it's going to be great for Fairfield Township, generate more revenue and help us pay for some of the more services that this community needs. So I'm in favor of this project, and I'm in favor of this JED. So I don't have any really questions more than a comment.
Trustee McAbey, do you have any comments or questions?
I have a few. I mean, we can wait until we get to the regular meeting. What talk about now? You go first.
Just leaving it to you if you'd like to. The thing that I like about this development is that it does align with one of our township goals, which is using economic development to help offset our costs. So with that revenue that will be generated, I think that's a really good thing that can help us to hopefully prolong the levy a little bit for any kind of safety services levy down the road a bit further. So this, in conjunction with some of the other economic development on Gilmore Road, has been a very good investment for Fairfield Township, and I think this looks like a good win for Fairfield Township.
As far as some of the details, was it guaranteed the $190,000?
That's a minimum service payment based upon the square footage, assuming that NIR completes those two buildings, which they say they're going to do for that. That coefficient stays in there, and that revenue is guaranteed to the extent that if it's not met and Duke doesn't pay that, then there's no obligation for the Board of Trustees, for NIR to do that. There's no obligation for the township to continue on to make the contributions to the TIF.
That revenue, will we see that in 2023?
The
190,000?
I believe it starts in 2024 um, for the number of jobs. But if the jobs are created prior to that, you'll see the ramp up to that. And again, I'd have to look through the document and see specifically when that minimum requirement is. But I believe it's 2024, 2025 in that for them to do that, and stabilization of the buildings.
And I tried to read through all the documents the best I could and understand it the best I could. Of course, I asked you some questions today. Did you bring us a hard copy of the numbers? Each, what everybody's going to make through the deal, the school district, the township, the city, the developer, bring that?
I do have a copy of those documents, of that document.
Do you have a copy for us? I know that while we're getting copies, and I've reluctantly at some points gone along with this to this point. I'm in favor of the project. It's just a matter of how the money works out. And if I read the numbers right, we're making a large contribution to the infrastructure, the township bill, whereas the city's making minimal. And Nair, I think they're making 550,000. Does that sound right?
They're making that contribution to the infrastructure. That's correct, as well as all of the infrastructure for the site development as well.
Is any of that site development, is that reimbursable from us, from the TIF or from the JED revenue?
Reimbursable to the developer?
Yes.
Yes.
So, and that's what it seemed like to me that it was. I wasn't clear at what point we could budget the revenue and actually spend it because of the way in terms of it. And I understand we're doing some kind of rolling TIF, so one building at a time, or the two buildings at a time for 10 years.
There is a rolling TIF associated with that, and I think the triggering event is when it reaches more than $2 million worth of value.
It's already there.
Then it goes to the TIF, and then the TIF starts the 30-year period on that. So it was created in that regard, so the township would receive the maximum benefit of the TIF.
Over 30 years.
Correct.
So again, with the rolling TIF, it's going to be one building at a time, one parcel at a time.
They'll be, I believe that they're going to be parcel specific in that. That's correct.
So it'll be on this parcel.
That's correct.
Done. This parcel and it's done.
That's my understanding. Yes, correct.
So 30 years becomes, so the whole project becomes, I don't know, 35, 40 years.
Could be 40 years. Correct. Yes. There's a life on that the TIF. There's a maximum life on that and I don't remember if it was 10 or 15 years on the triggering event from when the legislation was passed until you have to start that to go forward. You couldn't wait 50 years on a parcel and then get 30 more years on top of that.
So again, and one of the other reservations I had was about the 800,000 contribution from us. 250,000, we've talked about that with Duke, and we're still paying that apparently. But now we're being asked to borrow 800,000, right? Directly or indirectly,
it's going to be from the port. The Port Authority is going to issue the debt. That's the way it's contemplated in the documents.
Right. And who's going to pay the debt service?
The debt service will be actually paid by the developer in that as they'll make the payments, and then the township will reimburse them for those specific payments.
So they're going to pay, but we're going to pay them back
That's correct.
out of
The new TIF revenue.
the new TIF revenue, as long as it's enough to do that.
That's correct.
And if it's not enough, it will go to the JED revenue.
No, they're required to make minimum service payments on that. They're required to make up the difference on the debt for that.
They're required to make up the difference on the Yeah.
Correct. If the minimum service payment from the TIF revenue is not equal to um, the debt retirement, the developer is then required to make the minimum service payments, the difference in that.
Um, and in this paperwork, there was another CRA. CRA is going to be a part of this plan too.
There's actually not going to be a CRA as part of the plan, but there is a CRA component in that because initially we talked about creating a CRA and that was abandoned, but we're going to use a CRA component in that and as a position to make this site equitable to other sites that are in the market right now. There's going to be a need to have some abatement of the property tax on that. And so the CRA component that you see on the document will be an amount that is potentially not abated from the collection of tax. However, the tax will be collected as a pilot payment, and then that will be distributed back to the developer, and the developer can then make the tenant whole in that regard as it relates to the property tax.
So the developer won't retain that money. They'll pass it on to the actual person that owns the building or
The actual end user. Typically, the intent, I believe, with NIRE is that they're going to own the buildings, they're going to be the landlord. But in a series of common area maintenance and taxes, in that there'll probably be a triple net lease associated with that. And a triple net lease would contemplate that the end user in that would be responsible for the taxes. And there are some other projects online right now that are offering very significant tax incentives as it relates to property tax abatements for them. And Duke, in the marketing of this project, believes that that is important to make this site as desirable as possible.
And I mean, it looks like the first building's already, I don't know, footers are poured, or you guys have a building permit already. And I could see the part of this redoing the schools agreement on this area is actually taking some of that revenue that will be used for that, right? The paying the developer.
I don't understand your question.
Well, it shows in the pink on here, it talks about the CRA, and it's part of, it looks to me like it's on some page. It shows the CRA, or what the accountant was just talking about. You know, it's roughly $140,000 a year from the CRA to the school, is what it says. So, I mean, the school district, I know that we renegotiated the TIF with them, and for the first 10 years, instead of being 60-some%, it's 36%.
Right, correct.
If you look at the difference, it becomes that number.
Correct.
So, I mean, over the period of time of this illustration, the school district, I can see millions of reasons why they like it. Because it's a lot of money. As well as, I mean, property taxes in general, a lot of money goes to the school.
And Mr. McAfee, I would agree with that comment. But one thing I would like to note is that the board had agreed previously with the school district to not enter into a TIF agreement that would do anything but make them whole.
Right.
And because of this project and the nature of this project, the scope of this project,
Right.
and the partnerships associated with that, the school district saw the value in that to take a lesser amount for a period of time in that. At no time in the agreement do I believe that the school district receives an amount greater than what they would have received otherwise.
And I'm not saying that they are, I'm just saying that.
No, I understand.
I could, for that 10-year period of time, the taxes were going around the loop to get back to them, I guess.
But it's not at 100%.
No, it's not. It's really close to
It's not 100. It's an amount
maybe
less than that.
95%, but it's close. But in the long run, the school district on this project, in the 30 years, the dollar amount to them is almost $14 million. So that's a lot of money. And of course, if it didn't develop, you told us this before, if it didn't develop, it's $400 or something because it's just farming. Of course, the total township benefit in dollars is only $3.3 million. And if we pay the debt service the way we're talking about, if we're responsible for the debt service on that 800,000, that becomes almost 2 million in itself. Not to mention the 250,000 we're talking about. So I mean, it's from that standpoint, it's not a huge win for us over the period of time, unless the JED revenue becomes a steady stream which we can use to provide services to the township. I realize that after this period of time, the TIF goes away and the property taxes go to where they belong. So after the 30 years are up, then we would be back to normal, so to speak. Is any of that correct?
Well, it's all correct. And Mr. McAfee, I appreciate you pointing that out because, as I said, this is the first agreement that I've ever been involved with where you're going to have a coefficient based upon the square footage where the developer is going to guarantee that they're going to make a payment on the JED revenue. Most of the agreement, well, I can tell you exclusively, I've never negotiated an agreement before where a developer has said, we're going to guarantee a JED amount to the township, to the JED board in that. And so to your point, I mean, you framed it very well, and I appreciate that the township is going to receive 75% of the net revenues of $190,000, which actually will probably be more in that. I believe that they will be
more because there'll be another building.
There'll be another building, and there'll be a large number of employees, assuming that it's not Amazon and it's all robotics
So
inside of it.
let me just stop you right there. Okay. So the more employees, the more money we're going to get.
Absolutely.
So
The more
we're
revenue,
doing it-
correct.
We're doing it on the square footage, I thought.
That's
Not on
that's the base.
Okay.
That's the base.
Okay.
The sky's the limit on that. If they were going to get tenants in there that you're each going to make $1 million a year
So when
in
payroll,
that, and you
when
had
payroll
100 on
becomes
that,
big
it'd be
enough-
$100 million.
Okay, so when payroll becomes big enough to pay us 1.5% of that, which is more than the minimum, we'll get that.
That's correct. There's no cap on that.
No cap on it. So, okay, we get that money. It goes into that, I don't know, there were a number of different funds. It goes into that fund. But again, the internal construction cost, if the TIF revenue is not enough, then the developer has access to the JED money, correct?
Absolutely not.
Not,
Absolutely not.
so they can't ask for reimbursement
They're-
from the JED revenue?
They're not subject to the JED revenue. They're going to make the minimum service payments.
Okay. And we're not subject to reimbursing them for anything anything interior. Let me ask you this, what's the total cost of the township?
Total cost of what?
To the township? How much money are we going to invest in this? Is it the 800,000 plus interest and fees, plus the 250,000?
That's correct.
No more.
That's the minimum investment that the board will make. Plus, there is an additional amount when you talk about the investment because there is the abatement of what we were calling the CRA. So that's revenue that the township is not going to receive as a result of that.
Okay. That helps me a lot to talk through it like that. And we're going to talk more about the actual business agreement, the development agreement. And it's all tied together here, right, Larry?
Yes.
It all goes or none of it goes, right?
Correct.
So there were several places, again, where it mentioned reimbursing qualifying cost to the developer. And also, there was another place in there that alarmed me a little bit. City of Fairfield, they don't have to do phase two. They can apply for that money. If they don't get it, then they don't have to do phase two. And that's straightening the curve. Is that correct?
It's possible. That is possible.
Possible. I mean, it says right there, the best effort to secure funding, but in the event the grant funding is not secured, the city is not obligated. So that's pretty direct. I thought there was a different place where it talked about JED revenue could be used to reimburse.
Specifically on your point, without giving you a legal opinion on the qualified reimbursable amounts, generally speaking, my understanding of that, not a legal opinion, is so that the township is able to direct money for the costs that Duke or Nair would have as it relates to the development of the project. To use the TIF revenue.
The TIF revenue,
That's correct.
but not the JED revenue.
Correct.
Is that the way it's printed up, Larry? Is that the way you understand it?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
And one of your slides, it showed on there that the annexation, which that's been a big deal to me for, I don't know, 40 years. And we've been trying to, and we have with Hamilton for 90 years, and tried with Fairfield. And now we're going to get that. But there was an exception or two. Where were those exceptions? I can understand Seward Road, if and when we do straighten it, that we would need to give them a little land, and I'm fine with that. But where else?
The other part was, I think it was an area that the city of Fairfield created a park on previously that was outside of the limit. You're not pretty far away, pretty far removed from the general Fairfield Township proper on that, and that they were going to do that. I believe it was around some river property.
It's on River Road.
They've got a name for it. I can't remember, Black Lake or something. They
Marsh Lake. It's by
they're calling
Marsh
it
Lake.
something else, but yeah, it's Marsh Lake is what it has been. When my wife's family owned it, it was Marsh Lake. They said last night they had a surprise look. A couple of the councilmen had a surprise look when they found out they were giving up annexation, the ability to annex. And they had a heated conversation about it for a few minutes, and I was like, really? It didn't surprise me, but they had a couple of concerns, and so do I. I don't want our police cars and our first responders going lights and sirens across the whole city. I don't want it. And if we could solve that issue, that would be good, short of annexation. Not going to force anybody to go into the city. But that sounded like what they were talking about. They've got their eye on that next 100 acres. They bought 100 acres and then annexed it a couple of years ago because it was their property. I mean, if we didn't read about it in the paper, we wouldn't even know about it. There were some other interesting comments down there. One of the things the mayor brought up was about they provide that service for us and don't get paid for it. Well, in this deal, they're going to get 25%. So in my mind, they are going to get paid. So maybe that would help them, make them feel a little better about doing mutual aid like we would do to them on this side. With the annexation part, I understand they still have to ask us, but that's really all they have to do is notify us, which is what they didn't even do that for just, I want to say that one parcel right there along the dog park. They're trying to get to the river, I guess. I don't know why we couldn't do a joint project on that too, but anyway. I have strong reservations about borrowing the money and paying all the fees and interest and all of that. I would just soon us just directly pay $800 worth. But I still want higher to make those minimum payments. If they're going to guarantee the loan payment, the bond. I mentioned that before. You know, that $800,000 over 30 years, plus the cost and interest, it's at least $2 million. Are we too late for that?
I don't know that we're specifically too late for that. I don't believe that the Port Authority has initiated all of the requirements necessary to borrow that. Again, I would say there's still even the opportunity for the township to even enter into conversations with the Port Authority about, being the lender for it through the Port Authority.
At least we'd be paying ourselves back.
So
We'd be making the interest instead of paying.
right. I mean, again, I understand that you did raise that before. We did have some discussion about all of that. I'm not really, I understand we can talk about anything in the JED hearing, but
Right.
that's not specifically to the JED.
Right, although it's part of the whole agreement, which is everything's hooked together here.
Correct.
We're all trying to hook it together so we don't get down there and somebody not sign this or do that. I think that's it for right now.
Anything further?
No.
Okay. Any comments from the public?
The only other comment I'd make, Mr. Geis, is they never mentioned anything about the 0.234. There was nothing mentioned last time. I mean, when you read the JED, it talks about 1.5%, how this work's going to go. So now I understand that a little better. I understand that the square footage is a minimum.
Yes, sir. Right.
If there's no public comment, then we can entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the JED.
So moved.
Second,
Trustee Harkemaier.
yes.
Trustee Burden.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
The next item we have is the Christian Brothers Automotive Final PUD zoning case, FTZ C22-1C.
Yeah, typically,
Well, and I don't know if we need a motion, but it's okay, maybe Chuck can read his summary and just put the rest of it in the minutes instead of reading the 4 pages. Is that okay?
I think so.
Just put your findings in there, the last 30 words or something, and then we'll put the whole thing in the minutes.
Certainly, yep. So would you like me to orient you on the location of the property, or do you all reviewed the documents and are familiar with the location? Perfect. Okay, well, it is the staff's recommendation that, in the opinion of the staff, that all the conditions that were placed on the PUD during the zone change and the preliminary PUD process have been addressed in the provided final PUD plans. It is also the opinion of the staff that the submitted plans generally meet the requirements and guidelines outlined in the aesthetic criteria plan. Staff further believes that the final PUD plan is consistent with sections 615.7 of the township zoning resolution and will promote public health, safety, and the general welfare of the residents of Fairfield Township. Based on the findings of fact and the submitted proposal to the Fairfield Township Board of Trustees, staff makes the recommendation to approve the final PUD plan with the following comments. The first comment is that all applicable findings and conditions of the case number FTZC 08-5C shall remain in effect and are required to be met. And the second condition is that the monument sign must conform to the Fountains of Fairfield Township aesthetic criteria plan. That concludes my report.
So we need a motion then to open the public hearing.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes.
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes, here.
Are you both wanting to speak?
I was just more to answer questions.
Well, if you would, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this public hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah, so I didn't know if you guys needed a presentation or what the plan was for this. I'm Ryan Flanagan. I'm with Langen Engineering. We're the site civil on the design team. And this is Billy Green. He's a representative from Christian Brothers. So I can answer any questions you may have about the site. And then he would be more than happy to answer any questions you might have on Christian Brothers as an organization.
So how will you access the property?
Vehicular access will be through the main site and then off of Menards Boulevard. And pedestrian access will be off of Princeton, well, the sidewalk ramp up to the site.
There's no, will be a right-in, right? You're not requesting any kind of curb cut on Princeton.
Nope, it'll be just a curb cut off of Menards Boulevard.
And what is the majority of your business?
So we're mostly light automotive. I'll also add that we have 250 locations around the country, located in 30 states. We've been around since 1982. So the majority of our work is post-warranty work. That is brakes, shocks, tune-ups, electrical systems, AC service, oil changes, alignments.
Tires?
We do. It's a very small part of our business. We don't do any tire recapping, but in the case that a vehicle comes and they need tires, we'll get it brought over and then put on. We don't do any tire storage.
How many employees do you have?
It'd be between 8 to 10.
Eight to 10?
Yes.
And the average payroll?
I don't know the average payroll. Revenues start anywhere. Minimums usually after about 3 years, it's about 1.5 million up, can go up to 5 to 6 million
That's your gross.
revenue. Yes.
So what would be the average income? What would be the average hourly wage for your employee?
I don't, it depends on the location. We got 250. A lot of times it really varies from market to market.
And you've been to the site over there?
I have not yet. He just visited. So
I've been over there. I actually went over there before.
I mean, you're right behind the tire store.
Yep.
It also does light mechanical. And you come this way about, I don't know, 3/8 of a mile, and there's another one. And across the street, there's another one. And another one across the street there. I think there are 5 or 6 active light mechanical, brake shops thing right over there. I mean, what kind of market research did you do to pick that location?
So generally speaking, and I would like to add, with our 250 locations in 40 years, we've never closed a single location in our history. Any store that we've opened is still open. We've never defaulted on the SBA loan. So market, we pay attention to just a lot of the demographics has something to do with within a certain mile radius, the income. I mean, we know our model pretty well. We look at traffic counts. So being near other automotive users is nothing that doesn't really impact us. That's not at all.
I mean, price-wise, you're at the top of the price? Are you the
Well, I'll say
AAA Bob Summerall? Or
I'll say that we're not at the
Walmart?
I'll say we're not at the bottom tier. usually considered upper level. You get an upper level service. You get the same. Also, we're not open on weekends either. We're only open on Saturdays for modified hours. That's only during, at max, the first 180 days of business. After that, we're closed on weekends. We also offer a shuttle service that anytime someone drops off the car, we'll take you to your place of employment or back home. And then when the repair is done, we will pick you up for you to retrieve your car.
Do you use Uber for that, or?
No, we have our own shuttle service. Yes.
Well, are you gonna put any of those other tire businesses out? Are you gonna be so competitive, somebody's gonna close?
So we don't actually sell tires. So in a sense, if they're selling tires, we're probably going to be more of a benefit to them because that's where we would be getting our tires from. So it'd probably be more of a partnership.
They all do brakes and alignments and things like that, light mechanical, some lighter than others,
Right.
but,
So the majority of ours is post-warranty work. We do the same thing a dealership does without the additional costs and additional weight. I haven't studied each of the businesses on that street, so I don't know exactly what their scope of services is compared to ours. I mean, it's not our goal to put anybody out of business. That wouldn't be the goal, but
but it could just happen. You know, if you're better and cheaper and cheaper, you might put somebody on. Of course, my whole idea is we're pretty saturated as far as those stores go. And I don't want to see one of those empty on the corner because we've got another one coming.
or we may even improve their business model. I'm not, competition is competition. So I wouldn't say that we're trying to put anybody out, but at the same time, if we're very good, it could actually raise the standard of those around us as well.
Where's your nearest store to us?
I believe it's Westchester, I think. It's about 15 minutes from here. And then we've got another one in Loveland, Ohio.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Are there any other comments or?
How soon will you be ready?
As soon as possible. As soon as if we were to get approved here, we would he might speak more in time.
But yeah, I mean, if we're to get approval here, then it goes to the zoning meeting. And then after that, basically, as long as it takes us to get permits, be ready to start building.
Yeah, I think this is the last stop as far as zoning. You might have to see Chuck about something.
Oh, okay. I just thought, when I saw on the meeting schedule, there was one for I thought there was one like April 21st or something like that. But,
That's when we have our normal one.
okay.
That doesn't mean you're on there.
Gotcha.
He
All
would
right.
have told you if you weren't there.
Yep.
You would be there before here.
You'll just need to apply for a zoning certificate and move towards getting your building permits if they give you approval.
Perfect.
So to answer your question, it would be immediately after we were able to get permits. We don't sit on the land. We just immediately build.
We're very concerned about any kind of construction traffic coming anywhere but off of the bypass. We don't want you cutting through the neighborhoods and things like that. And there's a great shortcut over there. We don't want you using it. So we want you going right forward to the bypass, down 129 or Princeton Road, I guess. That type of thing. When you say Monday through Friday, what, 7:30 to 6?
It's 7 a.m. and no later than 6 p.m.
And then once you get going, you close on Saturday.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we need a motion to close the public hearing unless someone else wants to speak.
Second.
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes.
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
All right, the next thing on our old business items for board discussion is the paving costs. And I understand there's some changes with that.
There are, which I would guess is no surprise to anyone with the current economic environment, paving came in about 88,300 higher than what had been estimated originally by the county. And they had warned us all along that it was very subject to change. And we'll probably, correct me if I'm wrong, see the same with all the other road work as well.
Yeah, that's correct. Mr. Ziegler sent an email out today, 20% increase on black mat and approximately 10% increase on retrace.
So the county does require some type of communication by this Friday. We do have a resolution on if the board would like to keep the same paving list. We do believe that the 88,000 can be taken from several of the TIF funds. Story Point and Seward are both doing very well, not attached to any particular project. So you do have the ability to afford it if you decide to keep things the same.
Any questions on paving? Any discussion? We can talk about that more during the resolutions. Next topic, summer interns.
So you want to speak to that for Chief Thomas?
I can. Summer interns is the same thing that we did last year. We would just like to rehire some summer help to go out and paint hydrants and do some little stuff to keep the fire service up to date. Same program we did last year. I think 4 to 5.
Well, I believe Public Works. You were interested in a few as well. Did that work well last summer?
Yeah, that's correct. I'd spoke with Chief Thomas about that, possibly about getting 2 of them.
Right. So we were looking at 4 to 6, and we have the golf carts to be the hydrants again. The work that you were able to give them with edging, and I know you put him to the one you had to great use. So that's what we're just looking for, board approval to proceed with that.
I'm sorry. What was the cost to do that? 'Cause I was-
We pay them, it was $10 or $15 an hour last year. I'd have to look. $10 an hour last year.
It's like what, 20 hours a week, 25 hours a week?
It varied. Mhm.
I think it might be difficult to find people for $10 an hour right now. There's a lot of places that are hiring, and there's not a lot of people that seem to be available. Perhaps when school lets out, there will be more people available. Are we looking at people, what's the age group that we're targeting for these jobs?
Last year, we concentrated on 18 because we wanted them to be adult and have a driver's license.
And did we have trouble finding enough people last year, or was it pretty easy to find people right away?
It was a nice process last year. We went through Butler Tech, actually, through their fire program. Interviews 6, I believe.
Yeah, I
kept
believe
4.
so. And then also, I think we've spoke with some of the people in, I don't know if I'm saying it right, horticulture class that would be good for us, helping with landscaping and mowing and stuff like that. As we mentioned, the gentleman I had last year operated a 0 turn for us and worked out really well.
And you went after people in the Butler Tech landscape
Correct.
design?
Yes.
Okay. And then you got people in the fire program? Is that correct?
Yeah, we reached out to our partner over here, Richard Hall, who has the high school kids, and went directly through them.
They were wonderful last
Yeah.
year. Kept it, and it also gave, what was neat was they used it as an opportunity to have all of these students interview in real life. Like, they took it very serious. It was neat to see. So it was training for them on that side as well. So Butler Tech did a nice job.
Do we think that $10 is going to be sufficient, or do we need to go for a higher range there?
$12.
Yeah.
We can get.
I was going to say 13, but I mean, $12, $13 an hour. As we mentioned, I think some of these,
$12.50.
I'm sorry,
$12.50.
$12.50 it is. So, yeah.
We never did, I never saw a summary of what was done last year and what the cost was. You answer that in the summer. I can tell you there's a lot of fire hydrants there. I know that. I drive by most of them.
Yeah.
Um,
There were a lot that weren't though too.
I think Thomas put a recap in
not
his
on-
report.
Not on where I go. I know
Yeah.
they did. But we never did get a summary of that.
I'll
So it'd be
I'll
helpful
pull it
to
up. Thomas did one.
see how many hours they put in.
Yeah.
And things like that.
That wouldn't be a problem from us.
So if we had 5 of them, they did 20 hours a week, that's 100 hours a week, $1,250.
Could we have them work in the JED and then we can get some of that tax money back? Okay. Cut the grass over in the
They
JED,
could be cutting grass in the JED, but I think that some of our properties in ATM,
but it's where they're hired from.
that's where you work.
It's where you work.
It is.
Okay, so it sounds like we'll be moving forward with that.
That sounds great.
Okay. Next item, wind and solar farms.
Chuck,
So a representative from Butler County reached out to us and requested that the board review an opportunity that's presented by Senate Bill 52. This bill gives the county commissioners siting authority for wind and solar energy, specifically for businesses that they consider large or economically significant wind farms and large solar farms. So they are reaching out to us, the township, to see where we stand on having those types of businesses in Fairfield Township. A part of the resolution that they're going to have to pass is to include a map that shows the restricted areas, and this is the township's opportunity to decide whether or not we want to be included as a restricted area.
Restricted as in we don't want it,
Correct.
or restricted as in we want a jurisdiction.
So it sounds like the county will have the siting authority for these types of businesses. Not completely sure what authority that the trustees will have after this fact.
We don't address those in our brand new zoning resolution.
Based on conversations I had with the county, the township zoning will not have authority over these types of businesses.
So what they're asking is if we want to say there are certain areas we do not want the solar and wind to come into, is that what they're asking us for? Some input on
Yeah,
that?
so
Okay.
not just solar and wind, but yeah, for the large solar farms, economically significant wind and large wind farms.
Okay.
Yeah, whether or not the trustees think that's appropriate for Fairfield Township.
Do they know how, like, large scale? Because there's really not too many places left. I mean, maybe the Bonham Farm, but I don't think that they would be interested in doing that. I can't speak for them, but I don't know. I mean, there's a little bit, there's a small property behind the warehouses that we were talking about. We've got a few parcels here and there. I don't know if that would be the scale that they would be.
It's 100 acres.
I'm not really sure how large of the piece of land it would need to be.
We got that very important piece right there on the bypass.
Right. The Kettering property would be something.
It's pretty high up. You catch, be closer to the sun and catch all the way. I would say we'd want to restrict it. They're not going to give us jurisdiction, which they should.
So if I'm understanding it correctly, if we are agreeing with the commissioners, we don't have control over that. They're going to put Fairfield Township as a restricted area, which we can't have it.
Right.
Is that what you're understanding? Is that, Mr. Arbery, is that
That's what the
yours?
resolution says, I believe.
So we're giving them the authority to,
The resolution will say that Fairfield, tell the commissioners of Fairfield Township does not want these businesses.
But we could, without this resolution, we could make that determination on our own if someone were to apply, or is that?
I'm not sure of the law on that, but from what Chuck, has discussed with the county, I think if we don't pass the resolution, the county is going to take the position that they have the ability to enforce that and not us, not the
And-
township.
And if we don't say we don't want them, they're gonna assume that we do.
Right.
So we could end up
We could end up with them unless we tell the applicant no.
based on what Chuck just said, we don't get to say that.
I think it sounds like they would apply to the county and not necessarily us. I don't know that I have a little bit of a problem ceding control over a decision that would impact our community to another body.
So based on my understanding, is Senate Bill 52 gives the county commissioners that authority.
Is it law?
It's passed. Yeah, it's law.
It's signed into law.
So the county gave us the courtesy to reach out and see where we stand, and it sounds like they'll take the resolution if you pass it and incorporate it in the map that they're going to attach to their resolution.
And we don't want it.
I think wind and solar are good things. I just don't know if that's the proper fit for our comprehensive plan and kind of where we vision the township going forward.
I'm always reluctant to give up authority to the county to say that we're making this whole area a restricted zone. I'd rather, I guess, if we pass this resolution, the board is saying, well, we don't ever want these in our community. So we would be making that decision now, as opposed to if there was ever an application for it.
So the question I would have is if we went ahead and passed this tonight to protect, I guess, our sovereignty over that decision, would there be any opportunity for someone to come to us and redress that? So say, for example, down the road, someone wants to put in something. Could they come back to our board and say, we'd really like to do this here, and we would have another pass at saying yes or no if we put this in place?
I would think you can always amend a resolution.
But this would put the protection in right now that would keep it
Right.
from them going over and around us to put it in.
It's almost like the moratoriums that people pass, with respect to the marijuana and those kinds of things. You're saying you don't want any of these now. And then as the technology develops, you find out a little bit more about what's going on. Then if somebody came to you and wanted to put one of those large farms in Fairfield Township, I don't see why you couldn't amend your resolution to allow it.
Anything further on that?
To answer your questions or concerns? Or?
Well, again, the way it's set up, I say we have to tell them we don't want them. Is that the
So-
way you understand it?
Yes, if we're not wanting solar farms, I think we're being asked to pass this resolution to have the county say, okay, then we're not going to allow any to be put in Fairfield Township.
Just because we pass this resolution doesn't mean they're going to say that. But at least we're telling them we don't want them.
Okay.
That's the way I understand it. We'll still be up to the county. Right? They put this map together.
Correct. Yeah, but based on conversations I've had with staff, they're taking the resolutions from all the unincorporated townships and incorporating those resolutions in that.
I'm pretty sure they're not in favor of them also, so maybe they're just building a case for it. Would the rest of the property on Seward Road, would that be a good location for one of those types of farms, Mr. Geis? We have a 100-acre tract there on the front, and we have some land left over that's not in the original. With the rest of that that's so wet, would that be an okay use for that, you think?
So you're asking me to give you an opinion based upon my
Not a legal-
experience?
Not a legal opinion.
I understand that.
I'm just saying, it's so wet down there. I mean, somebody's gonna be moving a lot of dirt and trying to hide a bunch of water now. So maybe that would be the only use for it.
Again, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because generally speaking, unless it's the only use for it, I think that those uses in the traditional areas within the suburban areas of, Cincinnati, Dayton area are not good areas for solar farms or wind farms.
So you would say no. Short answer was no.
No.
And what the statute says is that the Board of County Commissioners may adopt a resolution designating all or part of the unincorporated area of the county as a restricted area, prohibiting the construction of these. And our resolution urges the Board of County Commissioners to adopt that resolution. So we're not actually adopting technically a resolution saying they can't come here. We're urging the Board of County Commissioners to do what the statute allows them to do.
That's the unincorporated area. What, does it address the cities at all?
This one, I don't know much about cities. I only do townships, Joe.
You got the statute in front of you.
Yeah, it says unincorporated areas though.
That's what I mean. Does that leave cities out altogether?
That leaves
They address
cities out.
somewhere else?
That leaves cities out, but I'm not saying there's not another statute that deals with the cities.
Or it's up to the city.
Right.
So we could drive down Seward Road, still have a lot of solar farm or whatever on the west side.
Conceivably, yes. Okay. Thank you.
Next item, staffing, police department.
I don't have much to add outside of what we presented the last few months. Chief, I don't know if you have anything to add, but we have followed up as indicated last month with a request through a resolution for 5 additional officers.
Yeah, I really don't have much more to add. I did a couple presentations on it. Kind of deep dive the last time I was here. So if there's any questions.
You have a suggestion on how you're going to pay for it?
Exactly as I showed in the presentation using TIF funds.
TIF fund?
Mhm.
Tax increment finance fund? And I had a big concern about that. I still do. I don't think we should be hiring long-term personnel and using TIF money, which is, to me, supposedly used for economic development and real infrastructure improvements or maintenance. And I also think this is a big decision. I think we should go to the voters with it. I think the voters should tell us whether they want 5 more police officers on the beat, and are they willing to pay for it? Because to me, that's what it means. If we were doing 1 this year and 1 in 18 months, and maybe 2 years later, that would be different. But we're talking about a large commitment, long-term commitment. And I know we have differences on what the numbers say, but I have problems seeing that gold in the bucket. I just don't think that's the way to do it. And I'd say the same thing about if we don't get the fire department grant, we're the same thing. We need additional help. I think we go to the voters and say, hey, what level of service are you willing to pay for?
Okay, anything further on that topic? All right, the next item is we have some June and July board meeting dates that we need to have some discussions over. We did change our meeting nights to Tuesday night, and I think that there were possibly some conflicts with June and July. So I wanted to talk about that now and look and see if we could potentially move some of those dates. So starting with June, Um, there's some conflicts for those first two, so would it be possible to move that June meeting to the fourth Tuesday? Either the third or fourth Tuesday?
Fourth Tuesday would be the 28th.
Yes, so either the 21st or the 28th.
So we would have a meeting May the 10th and then not again until June the 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a long time in between meetings.
Are you gone all week? I mean, can we move one day or?
Could we do it the 15th possibly? Could we move it to that
June the
Wednesday
15th?
or either the Wednesday or that Thursday would be great.
I'm okay the 15th and also the 16th. I'm open on those dates.
Would that work for everyone if we did the 15th or 16th?
Does your calendar look like Mr. McAfee? Are you open?
I didn't bring my work calendar, so I mean, I wrote those down, 15th and 16th. So we can't meet on the 8th, is what you're saying. We won't have a forum.
We could meet on the 8th or the 7th. The 7th or 8th would work.
Not the 14th.
Shelley won't be here on the 8th.
Shelley is out a few days there, so
We haven't seen her all year, so.
we would have Noel stand in. The other thing too is that will be when we talk about the tax budget in June. So it would probably be helpful if our fiscal officer was in attendance for that. So if we'd like to keep it that week, we could maybe make it the 15th or the 16th.
Well, could we make it one of those dates and then, Mr. McAfee, if you check your calendar and it's not available, could we move it again?
Well, that or we can just wait and confirm it at the next meeting. We do meet again. We can meet
Yeah.
on that.
Okay.
What about July? I mean, what?
July, there's multiple conflicts. So July, if we could move that, we already have the CIC meeting scheduled for 6:30 on the 26th. So I would recommend, based on schedules, that we move that to to hold a meeting on July 26th.
Trustee meeting on the 26th of July?
Yes.
We're gonna go 6 or 7 weeks between meetings.
Unless we need to have a meeting, we can always schedule one in, as is the
I can't make
practice.
the 26th, but
You
guys-
can't make the
No,
26th?
feel free
Okay.
to
Do you
go
have,
ahead.
So there's a conflict, I'm assuming on the 12th. Is there a conflict
Kelly can't be there on the 12th?
on the 14th of that week?
there's a conflict for both Shelley and I the week of the 10th through the week of the 10th. And another one, let's see, through the 23rd. So like the week of the 25th.
Are you, Mr. McAfee, are you available any date the week of the 25th,
I'm available the 30th,
30th,
Saturday.
Saturday the 30th?
Look, I set my dates based on what we adopted 2 months ago.
Right. And I'm out of town the 16th to the 23rd, so.
The fiscal officer set her calendar based on the Wednesdays that we had always done. So
Okay,
this
so let's
really
do-
threw her off.
Let's do the 13th then. That's a Wednesday.
I will not be available the 13th, and neither will the fiscal officer. You can meet without me, but I will not be available that week.
13th is not a great date. I could make it work, but I prefer not to.
We could do maybe
Can we do the 8th, that week of the, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong
what
week.
about the
July.
5th? Well, maybe the 6th. What
5th or
about July
6th?
6th? or 5th, the 5th or 6th.
I'm available either of those days, 5th or the 6th.
So we have to do the week of the 3rd minus the holiday, or the week of the 24th, which I can't be there. Is that what I'm hearing? We can't do any day of the 11th to the 15th or 18th to the 22nd.
So I guess we could just, the three of us could check our calendars and come back with if the 5th or 6th of July
Okay.
is okay, and if the 15th or 16th of June is okay.
Do you have that, Mrs. Vonderhaar?
Is that
5th or 6th?
the 5th or 6th of July? And we could set that on our May meeting,
And then that was the 15th or 16th of June.
June, yes.
Okay, so we, to be continued, we'll talk about that at the next meeting.
Great.
We're okay on the 11th of May, for the next meeting, right? I'm sorry, the
10th of May.
I am. Everyone else?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Okay, anything further? All right, communication. This is the portion of the meeting where you, the residents of Fairfield Township, are invited to share your thoughts with the board. Please know that this time has been set aside from the board to listen to you. Your comments are valued and will be taken into careful consideration. The board will not engage in dialogue at this time. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes each. The first person that we have signed in is Tom Wilson. You were just signing in for the, okay, excellent. Okay, the second person we have is Michael Yater. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
And we'd appreciate it if you'd be a whole lot more polite than the last time you were here and address the board, not play a live telephone call or anything like that for us.
Okay.
Okay.
Never. My name is Michael L. Yater Jr., 1116 Hayes Avenue. So last time I was here, you guys even said that you guys would be having the police chief reach out to me. That has since not happened. So as a representation of the issues, I've gone back and talked to Butler County, City of Hamilton prosecutor, as well as the judge and magistrate, as well as the state of Ohio. Here's the nice, interesting thing. When police officers misrepresent the law and say that something is civil when it is not in fact civil, that is misrepresentation of the law. So when I went 28 days without being able to see my daughter because she was being held in custodial interference, and the officers for Fairfield Township Police Department said that it was a civil issue, according to the Attorney General, it's not actually 29/19/23, as he so eloquently pointed out earlier, which is the law we have to follow, actually specifically lays out that not being able or interfering with the actual custody of a child is a criminal fact and a criminal act. So I consistently continue to see a misrepresentation and misapplication of the law in Fairfield Township in an effort to protect a mother. As a result of this, you guys had no problems putting a father in jail. You guys have consistently continued to hide and to evade and not have legitimate conversations. I can see you nod your head, Julie. So please be respectful if you're going to ask me to be respectful.
You're addressing the board, okay? We're just close your eyes and speak or whatever.
Okay. So as a part of this, if you guys want me to address the board directly, you guys claim to be leaders of Fairfield Township. Leaders of Fairfield and leaders of the world are able to determine things like their own fault or inhibition or inability of their employees to be able to perform and meet the standard as the legal definition in the state of Ohio. So do you guys want your guys' officers to actually follow the law as written for custody of interference, which is a criminal offense? Please, ma'am, don't record me. You're going to sit there and try to record me. It's not fair.
I'm utilizing this to take a time on your thing so that we do know how long you're speaking, which is the 3 minutes.
Okay, here's our next speaker.
Thank you for your time. We'll take that into consideration. The next person we have is Maria Tangi. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Maria Tangi, 1891 Harvard Street. I almost said 1884 because that's across the street. But anyway, I'm just gonna. Okay. If you don't know, I've started a community garden here in Fairfield Township at 1884 Harvard Street. If you would like to see our website, please go to the number 5 points, POINTSCG.org, and there you can find all the information about our community garden. The last time I was here, I think I had mentioned that I had been blessed with some wood chips. And so last week or the week before, when we had that really nice day, suddenly it was amazing. I had 2 volunteers come from a high school local to help out on laying down some of the wood chips. So that's our update for now. I've got a ton of plants planted in little seedlings ready to be put into the ground. I'm so excited. In the next couple of weeks, you might be seeing some more information online. Okay, well, online currency, digital currency is good for all of us. And so being able to, if you see anything with 5 Points Community Garden, share. If you have any resources that we're asking for, to share that as well, because that currency is helping us. Even if it's not monetary, it's a benefit to all of us. So we'll be doing a little marketing push over the next couple weeks to get compost or organic material, wood chips, mulch, things like that. And then we'll be looking for volunteers to get on site. And I'll be posting, if you look at the website, you'll find the calendar. So I'll be updating the calendar regularly on what's coming up next. So if you're like, oh, I'm not busy Friday, like this Friday, because I'm going to be there this Friday from 12 to 3. So if you need something to do, come see me. We're going to be finishing up laying the rest of the wood chips that we have so far. Or I am. If you want to come with me. Let's do it. But that's where you can see what's happening next on the community garden as far as physically in the space. And we're also looking for leadership, people who want to help out in a way that's more leader-like. I mean, that's leadership, right? So we just are looking for any leadership that want to get involved in our garden. So, all right, that's all. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Shall we do a 5-minute recess? Okay.
Be safe.
They got their tabs. And we took them out, me and my mom, for.
Okay. Next item, fiscal officers, recommendations and reports. Do we have anything for that this evening? Okay, let's move on. Motion to suspend the reading of the minutes from the regular meeting, March 8th, 2022.
Yeah, and if we could hold those, there's a couple of major blunders in there, and I just hadn't had time to report those. There's very few comments under the public section, and I think there should be some more. We have 4 or 5 speakers. I think we need more information there, and there were some typographical errors. So I'll try to get them to you by the end of the week.
So was that going to die due to a lack of a second?
Yes. And
Okay.
we also need to take them down off the website. They're already out there. They're not approved. So. Much as I like stuff on the website.
Okay. Motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes.
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
Administrators report.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay, motions and resolutions. So I move to approve the final PUD plan for Christian Brothers Automotive as set forth in zoning case number FTZ C22-1C, final PUD,
With the conditions,
with the condition that,
it says with conditions.
okay, with conditions.
With conditions that the staff requested. A second.
Any comments?
You know, and again, they may be a good company and all that, but you know, we hear that all the time. We don't hear them make some tires for. We don't need another business, I think, that falls in that category. I mean, the corner where it's going, I don't know what else will go there. I just can't support another light bulb automotive. Let's go.
I get where you're coming from. I understand that. It's just that I don't know that the township as a legal entity can pick winners and losers on that. But I do understand your concerns.
I don't know why we couldn't. I mean, it's PUD, we can pick and choose.
I'd be worried about the constitutionality of it.
But why are they even asking us? I mean, we don't have any control over the situation.
Any further discussion?
No.
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Nope.
that passes. May we have the first resolution, please?
Resolution number 2258, approving the development agreement among the City of Fairfield, Fairfield Township, and Al Nair LLC.
Motion to adopt Resolution 22-58.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Guy can take us through this, it's okay.
Is there any, in addition to what we've already heard, is there anything specific that we want to?
If you're in a hurry and you don't want him to, that's fine.
That's not what I said.
Okay, let's-
It's just that we've already,
You can take me through it. You can explain it so that I understand.
well, here's the thing, is that we've already had the hearing. So is there something in
The hearing
addition
wasn't
to,
about this.
is there something specific in addition to that you'd like to have him take us through?
I'd like for him to highlight the agreement, again, reinforcing what I think I know about it so that I'm able to vote with as much confidence as possible, one way or another.
I think that's fair. I mean,
Okay.
if Mr. Geis can just give a summary
Yeah, that's
on
fine.
what we're going to vote on. I'm in favor of that.
Or respond to somebody.
So we're talking about the tri-party agreement
Development agreement is what it's labeled.
Also the exhibit two.
in the exhibit. This is really, all things associated with that. It is the requirement for Alnire Inc. to perform as it relates to the project that we talked about in the development. It includes the TIF that is previously established in the board's obligation to provide reimbursement to the developer for infrastructure and debt retirement that would include some of the road improvements that are listed in section 3 there. It also obligates the city and the township to contribute $250,000 to the road improvements on the project as well. When you go back through, in the Articles 4, 5, and beyond that, it is mainly the representations of the township and the city in that they have the legal authority to do that.
Thank you.
How does all of this affect the current TIF that's there?
Well, when you say affect the current TIF that's there, I'm not sure I understand. The current TIF is generating revenue now, and it will continue to generate revenue
That's not part of this
For
project
that.
at all, right?
for that. I don't believe that's a consideration. That's I don't know specifically on that an answer to that. As you relate
Some
to,
of these buildings are being built on that TIF, right?
they're in
All of
the
them.
TIF.
All of
So
them.
that-
They're all in the TIF, but if you're talking about the revenue that's being generated on the original, the building that was created by Duke, is that to be considered as part of the revenue for this? I don't believe that that's part of this project, but
Can you answer that, Larry?
That's not part of this project, but these buildings will add to the revenue the township receives from the TIF.
So the TIF that's there now and operating, that money's going to continue to go into those accounts where it is today.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we're also, as part of this development agreement, we're going to amend the resolution and set up that TIF, right?
No, we specifically did not want to do that. We only amended the school compensation agreement. So the TIF agreement stays in place. We're not doing anything to amend the TIF agreement because it's already bringing in revenue, and now it's going to bring in more revenue. But we are amending the school compensation agreement that was filed at the time the TIF resolution was filed.
So this is a copy that I received in my box late last week. And on page 3, it talks about amending that resolution. So this is not what we're considering.
We're not amending the TIF resolution. We did not do that. If you look at my resolution, it just amends the school compensation agreement. Now that school compensation agreement is a different agreement from this one.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one yet either.
That's the 2259 is the school, correct?
Right.
Okay.
we're amending that in this resolution?
Not in this resolution. We're amending the school compensation agreement in a separate resolution.
Okay, do you have a copy of what I'm looking at? What's in this book?
I do not have a copy of what you're looking at right now.
On page 3 of this, the resolution that's in the book, first full paragraph, pursuant to the amendment to the TIP resolution.
Yes, sir.
Well, the TIF resolution is not being amended. I will tell you that.
This agreement is part of this, attached to this resolution, it says it is. So can we get the correct?
Well, before we sign this, we just got to cross the sentence out, the first part of the sentence. It says pursuant to an amendment of the TIF resolution passed by the township in the form of resolution number blank. It'll be pursuant to the terms of the school compensation agreement. And that's what's being amended. So we'll have to revise that language.
So we need to do page 3 then?
Yeah, but we'll have to meet with the, I think everybody's gonna have to get together, but yes, we will need a new page 3 because everyone, it's been made clear to all the attorneys and everyone involved in the deal that we are not amending the TIF resolution. We are only amending the school compensation agreement. And when these documents were originally drafted, the parties thought that the TIF resolution would be amended, and I balked at that and said no. But apparently this slipped through this paragraph there.
So I'm not an attorney, obviously. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express. But to my understanding, maybe the sentence should read pursuant to the TIF resolution. So just the words to an amendment to, because it's going to say that, it's going to say passed by the township on, if we pass it tonight, April the 12th, 2022, with the resolution number and together with the original resolution.
Yeah, we're amending only the school compensation agreement.
Right.
The TIF resolution was passed in 2018. And that's referenced in other documents, I know.
Okay, so what do we need to do to make this move forward? We need to strike that. What's our plan? We're gonna change this document. We're gonna
I think we
modify
can-
this. What are we gonna do?
Well, we need to change this language so that we're saying that only the school compensation agreement is being changed from the original TIF resolution. That's what's being amended.
Okay.
So this language, there will be no amendment to the TIF resolution. So I would say just cross out the first 3 lines of this, capitalize the P on pursuant, and it says pursuant to the terms of the school compensation agreement and the TIF agreement, the township will apply. And then
Okay, so you'll take care of that modification, and then before we sign that, we'll have that modified, correct?
well, all I can do is cross it out here.
Okay. we okay with that?
So do we need to amend the
The resol-
motion?
The resolution itself is okay.
Okay.
It's just that those three lines have to be, the first three lines of page 3, where it says pursuant to an amendment
Right.
those first three lines need to be taken out on page 3. And then it should start with pursuant to the terms of the school compensation agreement. And it was my understanding, and Kenneth, correct me if I'm wrong, that the parties were all going to get together and go over all these agreements and fill in the dates and all those things after these resolutions are passed, and then we're going to have official signed documents, right?
Correct.
So we can get this fixed, so that you know that when you're passing this resolution, that those three lines are going to be removed. After we pass the resolutions, assuming you do pass the resolutions, the parties are all planning on getting together because there are blanks in the agreement. So we're going to have to fill in all those blanks, and we'll get these lines taken out when we do that. But so it's clear for the record, the resolution we're passing attaches the agreement, and those lines will be excluded. Any reference to the TIP resolution being amended will be taken out of this because we did not agree to do that.
Okay.
So where it mentions Article 2, Development Incentives, it talks about the TIP agreement, Exhibit B, that's what we're reading, right?
That's the tax incentive agreement, right?
Development Incentives.
Exhibit B is the tip, right?
Okay, so we
That's the
take it-
tax increment financing agreement. That's not the TIP resolution.
We're going to take out those first couple of lines on the first full paragraph on page 3.
Right.
What's the total amount of debt the Port Authority would be issuing? Would it be the 800,000 plus capitalization?
Correct. It will probably be somewhere between $1 million and $1.2 million. I don't know exactly what that is. I think a lot of that will depend upon the interest rate and the fees.
So after 30 years, the total cost of that's going to be $2.5 million.
That approximately, yes.
And where is the actual copy of the school agreement?
School compensation agreement should be attached to that resolution.
Resolution 2259 or 2259?
Here's the tax increment finance.
The school compensation agreement is not in that document. It's attached to that other resolution.
Yeah, it's after 2259 resolution.
The next resolution.
It is correct. Next resolution.
So can you summarize what that means? This is the first time I've seen this. This was not in my packet.
The school agreement was not in your packet.
Yeah.
So generally, if you would go to page 5 of that, it talks about the payment received from the township in an amount equal to the product of the initial service payments received by the township. And that's where you got the 36% that you talked about earlier. Onto that amount will be calculated back to them. And that's for a period, through the first 10 years, and then in years 11 forward, then they receive the full amount.
Whatever.
Right.
60.4. But looks like it's a small slice of that.
I think by statute, they're required to get the same amount as the local school district.
Is it in this agreement, or is it in the JED agreement where it talks about the property that could be allowed to be annexed?
That's in the JED agreement.
I appreciate your patience.
Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Trustee Harkemeyer.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
that passes. Maybe we have the next resolution, please.
Resolution 2259, approving amended school compensation agreement among Fairfield Township, Fairfield City School District Board of Education, and Butler Technology and Career Development Schools.
Motion to adopt 22-59.
Second.
Any discussion?
This will become effective for 2022. Next year, 2022. Or can we make that check and get ready to send them a little bit less? It doesn't affect the original tip anyway, right?
That's correct. You're talking about the school funding agreement, when that becomes effective
Yes.
on that. It's when I believe the TIFs reach that rolling TIF level on that. When they reach that threshold on that $2 million amount, that's when that becomes effective.
You guys have created a record keeping document, you know that. Job security put this one. Project Fund 1, Project Fund 2.
Any further discussion?
Trustee Harkemeyer.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
that resolution passes. May we have the next resolution, please?
Resolution 2260, authorizing the administrator to execute the Fairfield Township, City of Fairfield Joint Economic Development District contract.
Second?
Any discussion?
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes?
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
That resolution passes. May we have the next resolution, please?
Resolution number 2261, approving open purchase order balances.
Motion to adopt.
Second?
Any discussion?
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes?
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
That passes. May we have the next resolution, please?
Resolution 2262, approving purchase of stalker speed awareness monitor for the police department from MPH Industries in the total amount of $9,262.
Motion to adopt 22-62.
Second.
Make sure I have the right number. Sorry.
Chief, do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
The one that we have is 12 years old. We bought it in 2010. Outdated in every aspect. It's just not worth it. In fact, they don't even repair it. So it's done. It sits out in the elements all the time. This is an upgraded version. It's newer. It has a whole lot of additional items that we're placing on it. Thus the cost.
We'll send out warning letters.
This does have the capacity of storing a lot of data, acquiring a lot of data for traffic study, which the other one didn't also. It's not going to send out letters though.
Well, we'll take a picture of the license plate.
No.
Any further discussion?
No.
No, it's state bid, right?
Yes.
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes?
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
That passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution 2263, approving purchase of mowing equipment from Fairfield Power Equipment for the Township Public Works Department in the total amount of $15,059. And they've offered better than state bid pricing for the equipment and to be purchased out of Fund 1000.
We don't have any other county to take it out of. Can't be used for anything else.
I think we could. I didn't talk to the fiscal officer about that.
Motion to adopt 2263.
Second.
Mr. Bennett, do you have any comments?
This will be replacing a 2000 Bobcat 54-inch mower. Over the past several years, we've put a lot of money into repairs, and last year when we got some of the parts for it, they said they were getting so hard to get, so I'd like to replace it with this.
We still use that or get rid of it?
We're still going to try to use it, possibly mowing like Gilmore Road, Princeton Road on the roadsides, where there's a lot of trash and debris that we wind up running over. But yeah, we'll still utilize it until it won't go anymore.
Any further discussion?
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes?
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
And that passes. May we have the next resolution, please?
Resolution 2264, approving repairs to Fire Department Engine 212 in the amount of $12,539.72 from Pro Poly of America Incorporated.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So the water tanks and fire trucks are back on the inside. And sometimes those things break through. There's 5 or 6 of them in there. And there's 4 of them that broke. Causing the water to stop that. We just have to dry, erratic. All that kind of stuff. To the point where it's now leaking. It's very careful.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
that passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution 2265, authorizing 3% pay raises for employees.
Motion to adopt 21-65.
Second.
I think it's 22.
It is 22.
They changed it to
22.
We have a typo.
What was the typo?
I'm sorry.
I think the numbers changed. Did you say 22 or 21? The numbers changed to 22. That was
No.
a mistake.
Did I say 21?
Yeah, well, that's what it says on
That's
the top.
what
I
on here.
apologize.
That was a mistake.
2265.
I think it's 22.
Any discussion?
So these are our non-contract employees. So if I
Correct.
went back and pulled one of their files, I would see their evaluation as of
We
March
did.
31st or something.
We did evaluations.
And this provides parity with our bargaining unit contracts, I believe.
As far as the raise amount.
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
that passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution 2266, approving payment to Sedgwick in the amount of $7,635. This is our TPA for workers' comp.
Second.
Any discussion?
It's the same vendor we used last year.
Correct.
The raise fee.
I'd have to go back and pull from last year.
You don't know. Is it a 3-year contract?
We usually, I think it's annual. We typically bring it annual. It actually may be a decrease because they pay a certain percent and our workers' comp has dropped significantly. So our payment is cut in half this year. It's based on our experience.
Any further discussion?
It's prorated by department, I see.
Correct.
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
that passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution 2267, dispersing $654,277.92 from the tax increment financing fund numbers 2904, 2906, and 2908 for distribution of TIF monies collected to the Fairfield City School District. And this is the percentages. They are listed in the section. They vary, but this is based on receiving our first half tax settlement.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Still like it better when you have a resolution for each one. I see the breakdown in there.
Any further discussion?
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
that resolution passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution number 2268, authorizing the creation of 5 full-time police officer positions.
Motion to adopt 22-68.
Second.
Oh, they had additional or something. New.
The creation of 5 full-time.
Authorizing the creation of 5 additional.
The creation kind of covers that.
I'm sorry, it doesn't make no reference to how you pay for it.
The whole presentation last month was based on a whole variety of income streams. And I also brought up the point that long-term levy would need to be considered.
In your conversation last time, changed some of what you said the month before because you got some additional information.
On the loans, correct.
Excuse me?
On the loans, yes.
So again, I think the board should be going to the voters to get authorization for these 5 positions, 4 or 3 or whatever, however many. So that when we hire these people, we know without any doubt we have money.
I believe we've had multiple presentations on that. I mean, between the two of you, are you confident in our ability to finance that for the long term? Chief Shabali, Mrs. Von Hart?
Oh, yeah, I am. Yes, I think we're in position to do that. But knowing that at some point a levy will be needed. And that would be needed eventually with or without 5 additional officers.
Yeah, I don't know why we're talking about that now. Having some type of plan instead of just passing something. We're not even up to full staff now. We're still looking for one more, right, Chief? Yeah. So we don't really know the operational cost, what it's going to cost us this year. We talk about, we estimate, but we don't know until we get everybody up and running, all the costs. You can authorize 5 more, and I understand some of the need for that. I really don't agree with 5 at this point, but I think we ought to have not that we have a whole smorgasbord of things. We should tell the voters how we're going to pay for this, earmark the money, cover the money.
Chief Shabali, do you have a pretty decent grasp of how this addition of the 1 person and the additional 5 people are going to impact your budget and operating expenses?
Well, that presentation was conducted by Mrs. Von der Haar. We've worked on it together. I spoke to her for a while, for several months. I would certainly not hire 1 person if we couldn't afford them. So I feel comfortable based on what came out of that presentation that we can hire 5 comfortably for a while. As she said, I think sooner or later it's going to have to be a review of a levy.
So 110,000. Your use presentation is at 110,000 per person.
100 to 110,000.
Yeah,
Yes.
so 6 times that, 660,000. We might have enough cars because we bought a bunch of them last year, but still, that's a lot of money with no real dedicated source. In my
Mrs. Von der Hart, do you want to briefly highlight the funding sources? The other thing too is we could probably attach the analysis from the prior meetings to this resolution, just in case anyone was.
Just tell me where you're going to get it from. You're going to take it from 2906 like we do with everything else. That cash cow is just about dry.
Is that cash cow in fact dry?
2906 is primarily dedicated to paying for the remainder of 2904 that was set up with a 10-year deficiency. And it's also paying other debt service. And as we discussed in the meetings, that debt service, you're looking, in 2 years, less than 2 years, quite a bit of that debt will fall off because it'll be paid off by 2027. So 5 years from now, you'll be debt free. You'll have an additional new revenue stream through the TIF and JED. JED, we haven't used any of that money. It's at almost $3 million with more coming in. We have RID money, more coming in. We have, like just right now in 2904 for Story Point, we have $329,000 not appropriated, and you're looking to receive another $260,000 later this year. Seward Road is also picking up right now. You have 202,000 in there with another 170 coming in.
Just to stop, those numbers are prior to paying the school district, aren't they? They haven't, the school district that we just authorized tonight hasn't come out of those numbers.
We're
So
not
again,
paying out of all of those, so, but
we're paying
yes,
School district money, they're cut of that, all those tips.
a lot of it out of 2906 that we're,
Not all of
yeah.
them, we're paying it out all of them, we just passed the resolution. So again, the idea that, I just don't understand why you don't say, here's how we're gonna pay for it, and not say we're gonna take something here, here, and here. When the next project comes in, and we spend all the 2906 money, or dedicated, or encumbered it, how are we gonna be able to, just like you're doing on Seward Road, how are we gonna be able to use the money that we should be using for economic development? How are we gonna do that and pay for police officers?
You also have the AARP money.
So I'm trusting that the two of you have done significant financial analysis in preparation of those things.
And with
You've
Mr.
got-
Geis,
and
yes.
with Mr. Geis too. I don't believe that you would bring something to the board if we didn't have the ability to pay for that.
I mean, it hasn't happened in 8 years. You're thriving. The board's thriving.
And I would really hesitate to go to the voters now for a levy if we can pay for these things on an extended basis.
Keep in mind, it's also a first read.
Any further discussion? Are we, so this does have a motion and a second. Do we want to vote on this, or do we want to bring it back as a second read?
Well, I mean, we've had a couple presentations on the need for the police officers. We've had presentations, and I met with Chief Tribali and Administrator Vonderhaar about this information, and they laid out the financial plan for it. This was back in December, I recall, before I even was on the board, as I was getting onboarded to join. And I'm satisfied with what we have coming in as an income stream and what we already have, that we could afford these officers now. And I think it's important that we have it. I think the numbers, if I remember correctly, we're almost 15 officers deficient based on the numbers for our size of township and the number of residents. So this just kind of helps a little bit, doesn't even get us to where the data says we should be. So, and with the talent pool not there, it's going to take a while, I think, for our chief to find these 5 officers. And so I would rather him start that process now as opposed to wait any longer. And that's just opinion of one of the trustees.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Trustee Harkemaier,
Yes?
Trustee Birding,
Yes.
No,
Trustee McAbey.
Okay, that motion passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution 2269, authorizing the appointment of part-time firefighter EMT Angela Plose to the Fairfield Township Fire Department at an hourly rate of $15.50 with a 12-month probationary period.
motion to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this the resolution added to the agenda yesterday?
Yes, it was.
AC Schumann, do you have any comments on this one, or?
Yeah, she comes with 6 years experience. She works for 3 other departments now. She's currently in medical school, so I think she'll be a great addition.
Trustee Harkemaier,
Yes,
Trustee Birding,
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes,
that passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution 2270, amending Resolution 2219 due to cost increase of materials and freight, designating Fairfield Township roads for bid on the attached paving estimate list, Attachment A, to be certified for funding upon the awarding of contract as determined by the Butler County Engineers Office with a cost not to exceed $516,000.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any discussion?
I read the email. I saw where they want to put it out to bid earlier next year. And nobody knows whether this is going to be the new normal.
I think they only had 2 bidders on it this year, and some of the logic was is if they move that date up, we might be able to get in earlier to get the bidding done earlier so that there's less competition further down the road. So it sounded like that we would have to have, and you probably know this already, the paving list by August. And then it sounded like everything was going to be moved up a month. So we just need to be prepared for that we'll be seeing that earlier and we'll be voting on it earlier next year.
I mean, this is big enough, and I know we mentioned this in the past, maybe getting our own bid. I mean, they can't find workers. Those asphalt companies, they can't find them, and I think that's why we didn't get it. But we're also part of a big contract, right? And that means you're going to get a big company or not. I mean, what do you think? Well, I mean, maybe we put this out ourselves, see if we get a better price.
From my understanding, the reason it's always been that way, all of the townships get in on it as one is we get a better price that way, supposedly. I mean, that's solely up to you guys. That's your decision. But I feel like it's worked for many, many years of doing it this way, and maybe it's worked for a good reason,
Well, and, I always thought it was okay too, but like I said, now there seem to be other factors. If you don't get a big company, they don't split the contracts, right?
No.
Awarded to one.
And as far as, I mean, trying to find any other company out there to do the paving for us, for the amount of work that we're going to do every year, you're talking $500,000-$600,000 in paving. I don't know that you're going to find a smaller company that's going to be able to handle that and give us, the outcome that we've been getting.
Do you have any comments on that, Mr. Guys? That size contract for paving? I know your former employer used to have big contracts, right?
That's correct. And I would agree with Mr. Bennett on the fact that for the longest time, I always thought that it was advantageous to lump them all together and to bid them collectively. But what my experience bore out is in probably the last 10 years is that splitting them out and bidding them individually, I don't know that we got a better price than that, but we were able to get the work done faster and better because the contract was specifically for the organization as opposed to a county bid contract where I think, and again, I don't know specifically about Fairfield Township, but when the county bids that, you go into a queue into that. And for example, they may mill a certain number of streets, over a period of time, and it may not all be in Fairfield Township. It may be Fairfield Township, Westchester, Liberty Township.
We see that all the time.
And it may be weeks where you have, your streets, milled without being repaved or any being resurfaced in that. And with the contract, when you talk about a $500,000 contract, that's not even a huge contract anymore for that. I would, again, depending upon the work, you may get 5 bidders for that. You may only get 2, but you may get 5. But you would think that you would get, Barrett, Jurgensen,
That's typically the only
some of
2.
those. You may get Hamilton. You may get, Hamilton does paving. You may get a few a few of the others that now are getting the paving in that too. But again, my experience is that sometimes it's not always best to be with that. You know, one suggestion you could have, if you were going to bid this early, for example, if you were going to bid this, say in June or whatever, when, I don't know when you were going to bid this, but if you bid that early and you didn't get the result that you wanted, you probably could always go with the county, couldn't you?
I don't believe so.
They won't
No,
let you do that.
no. And not saying that that's a bad idea, but I just feel like, you know, if that was the case, then several other townships would be trying to outsource and go, you know, to a different company or something like that.
You know, again, it depends on how small you are, that kind of thing.
Right.
But again, 500,000, you know, we talked about increasing the amount. But we're gonna
Good thing we
spend.
didn't, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, we can still
Oh,
do
yeah.
that, you know what I mean? The roads still have to be done. I don't know that any of these have to be done this year. So, I mean, but nobody has a crystal ball on whether this is a blip in the system, you know, the 20% or 25% up. But at the same time, I think whether we do this or not, I think we need to explore that. We get our own streets and get them out in the fall, get out in front of the county and try to find out what the numbers might be for us. I'd be willing to look at that.
Okay. I'll get with you, Mr. Geis, if you know some other contacts to reach out to. I don't know anybody other than Jurgensen and Barrett. You talking about Ray Hamilton or
And who were the two bidders this time?
Barrett and Jurgensen? Jurgensen was awarded the contract.
They are so big.
Yeah, they are. Typically, there's stipulations on the contract as far as the milling when they come in and, you know, mill a subdivision or whatever. In the contract, it says that the roads aren't supposed to be left open a certain number of days, but you got to take into consideration too with, you know, weather. And I know some of the problems that we had last year was mechanical problems that Jurgensen had on milling machines. But yeah, it's something we can look into.
So it sounds like though for this year, we don't really have if we don't necessarily have the option.
Correct.
In the interest of time, if we were to go and have Jorgensen and Barrett bid this, they would probably come back and say, well, we already bid that. But maybe for next year, it would be something to consider.
Yeah, if they would do that. Yeah, we can reach out to them and like
Or
Mr.
whoever
Geis
else
mentioned.
may or may not be out there. I would just be hesitant to put this one out to bid this year because from what I understand, those two paving companies are already pretty full. I mean, it's probably
Right.
late in the season to be doing that, but perhaps for next year, that's something we can look at.
All right.
So why don't we take Dixon Drive off of there? That brings it down 70,000.
My suggestion would be leave Dixon Drive on and eliminate the black mat at 93,000.
People are not
I've had
fans of the
I've
black
had
mat.
several calls on Dixon Drive over the last few years. It's in
That's a
pretty
lot
bad.
of money for that
It's-
short.
It's in pretty bad shape. Yeah, especially coming off of, please. If that's what you're instructing me to do, then I'll do that. Is that what you're saying? Sure. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do.
Well, I was just looking for a way to get this down to what we've been normally doing. Again, we're gonna have to start doing more. And I see we're paying for them out of the cash cow and the senior, junior, and the third there, so, I know that's not reflected in the numbers we just heard.
So while we're talking about this, you're talking about getting the price down. If you're all in agreement of doing the paving, all of the paving that's listed, and you're talking about wanting to try to save a little bit, as I suggested, possibly taking the black mat off. I know we're supposed to have a meeting, I want to say it's the 21st, to discuss the cost on black mat. As I mentioned earlier, they're expecting at least a 20% increase on that.
And I've gotten feedback from residents. They do not like the black mat.
Nobody
I think
does,
you've gotten
but
some of it too. So I would say if we want to move something, I'd move the black mat.
retrace is supposed to go up 10%. I feel like that's something that we have to do. So, as I said, if you're concerned about the cost, then we can take the black mat off. That would be my suggestion.
I mean, black mat does serve a purpose, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it does.
Well, I know it does.
Yeah.
It does prolong the roads, but there are residents that have expressed strong feelings to me about their dislike of black mat.
Now, how many residents? One on the end of the cul-de-sac down in, that is in the spring. I think he's voiced that.
That would be one. Yep.
And he wanted it to look like this out here. It's not going to do it.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
This cul-de-sac is not a parking lot.
Right. We went out and took care of it. He was happy. So that's all matters.
I'm not against taking it off to
Yeah.
lower the cost, but it serves its purpose. And I know I haven't seen any concrete for this year. We need to be doing that right now. for next
Well, the
year.
reason there was no concrete for this year is because of the streets that are on the paving list. They were done a year or two
last
ago
year.
with the concrete. That's fine as far as getting price on curb and gutter, but I need to know what roads you want to pave before I can have them come out and give, we got to be in an agreement of that before I can have a company come out and give us an estimate on curb and gutter. So,
So you need to give us a list by July 1st of what you want to pay next year.
okay,
And we'll sift through it and decide what's in it that needs to be done. And do that, get that pushed in front, because that needs to be done before.
right.
And then really, they could do that this fall or in the winter, you could do
Mhm.
the president.
Right.
And then we'd be ready to pay them.
I just know the cost of the curb and gutter is going to go up considerably from, the contractor we used in the past. So that's something to keep in mind too, that the price of the concrete curb and gutter is going to go up. So then we may have to start cutting back a little bit on our paving as well.
You need to stay on that 8 to 10% of the roads, or else we're going to be behind right about the time the tips run out.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, and the thing too that we need, this board has done a good, I think there was a few years where the paving was cut back, and then we did some accelerated years where we added to paving, and that was a good thing. That was a good thing. But we did do that. So we just need to keep that in mind that traditionally we spent a little less. We've spent more the past few years to kind of catch up, because I think that there was the roads analysis that we did that mapped out that extended plan that showed what we actually had to do in order to keep up. So perhaps that's something we should revisit at some time, is that overall paving plan, along with, I'm envisioning maybe a chart that shows our historical trends of spending on paving and what it's been recently, and maybe projecting what it would be going forward. So maybe that's something we can look at in conjunction with our overall paving strategy.
I'll try to get the paving list, suggested paving list for next year to you before July, due to the fact of if we don't choose to go with a different contractor as far as Barrett or Jurgensen, in the email today, it was stated that the county wants that information in August. So I'll get it to you as quickly as possible.
And I want to thank Mr. Bennett for taking me around a couple of weeks ago, around at the streets. I wanted to get some more information about, why he feels certain streets need to be done. It was perfect timing because it had just rained, and you could see like all the cracks because the road was drying, but the cracks weren't drying. You could see all the cracks in a row and all the spider webs. And you were explaining that this road could have another year or two left before it needs to be addressed, but this road here needs to be done right away. And so I do appreciate you giving your expertise to me, or at least telling me what your reasoning was. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The new roads always striping this year. Forest Road, one into the other.
Princeton Road, Morris Road, and Gilmore Road. Okay.
Any further discussion?
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
that passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution 2271, opposing the construction of large or economically significant wind farms or large solar facilities within the boundaries of Fairfield Township.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
I appreciate the advice of counsel on this. I was confused about if we were relinquishing our ability to have these in our area. I'm not saying that this board wants to have them, but if it's going to prohibit future boards, the ability to allow those to come to the township. So thank you very much for your guidance on that.
Sure.
Any discussion?
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
Yes.
that passes. Next resolution, please.
Resolution 2272, declaring nuisance and ordering abatement on the properties listed below, and further authorizing the zoning administrator to initiate complaint. Properties include 44008 Canal Road for drunken debris, 2952 Foxtown Drive for drunken debris and an operable vehicle, and 3110 James Place for drunken debris.
Motion to adopt 2272.
Second, any discussion?
Make a motion to remove 3110 James Place. I talked to the property owner last week to clean it up. I didn't have a chance to get by there today to see if he's done it.
And so if we pass this and he has it cleaned up, what happens? Do we then, we don't do anything to?
We won't do anything. Yeah, if we pass it and the property owner is in compliance, when we go out to do the final inspection, we'll just, mark it as resolved, close it.
Any further discussion?
Trustee,
Made a motion.
Is there a second on trustee McAbee's motion to amend the resolution? It dies to lack of a second. Back to the original resolution.
And then we can discuss that. You can look at 3110 James Place, and if he feels like he's being picked on, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but I can tell you that you can go a half a mile in any direction and you'll find a whole lot worse that, as far as I know, we're not dealing with. So I'd be very disappointed, and he is very disappointed. He's been a long-time resident.
But it sounds like he's getting ready to do the right thing and resolve it within the next week, correct? That's what it sounds like, that you spoke with them.
Physically
And
able to get it done in the next week or not.
does he, there might be agencies that could provide assistance to him depending on his classification. And perhaps Mr. Goins could follow up with that in case there was something. I don't know what his status is, if veteran, senior, something like that, but perhaps there's some mechanism or people, agencies that could be contacted to assist him. I don't know.
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes,
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbey.
No,
That passes. Okay, under announcements, we have our Easter egg hunt that's back Saturday, April 16th, 2022 at 1 p.m. right out here at Heroes Park. Our next zoning commission meeting will be Wednesday, April 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Our spring cleanup day will be Saturday, April 23rd, 2022 from 9 to 3 p.m. Our next Fairfield Township Board of Trustees meeting will be Tuesday, May 10th at 7 p.m. And our offices will be closed to observe the Memorial Holiday on Monday, May 30th, 2022. Are there any board member comments?
I'd like to make a motion that we do our own financing, either pay cash for the 800,000, we can use the project account and the RID money. They both qualify, we could pay for that, and then receive the payment back from the developer versus taking that 800,000 and turning it into an $8 million debt or charges to the township. Either one way or the other. I really don't want to do the financing for them, but that would be better than paying all the fees, the issuance costs, that type of thing. I think it's a good long-term decision for the township to take care of that 800,000.
And I'll second a motion for discussion purposes, because I'd like to learn more about it. Do we need to amend the agenda to have that, or?
Well, what's
This
the
is a
motion? Are we motioning to do this or to talk about it?
Well, we're motioning to do it. I don't have to vote for it if I don't agree with it. But once I second the motion, then we can have a discussion about it, correct?
Yes.
I can still vote no if I don't like the idea,
That is correct.
and then the motion
Oh,
will
no, you
fail.
can't.
But I would like, other opinions on that.
I don't think you need to amend the agenda only because this has been an agenda item. I mean, this has been
Okay.
discussed all evening. This, I think, is something that's related to other agenda items.
Okay. So for sake of discussion, when you first brought that up, I thought it was a very intriguing idea, and I think it would save us some money. But I would like to have some more input from some of our members, experts on if that truly would be not just beneficial, but how much more beneficial and what kind of strain would it put on us to do that upfront.
Well, I mean, the two accounts that I just mentioned, there's almost 800,000 in the RID account, and it's for projects. That's what we used when we did the shell game with Hamilton. We paid the 1.7 million, whatever the number was, for Gilmore Road out of the RID account, and then Hamilton paid us back, and we put it in the general fund. I'm not suggesting that at this point, but we could use that RID money, and it has to be used for projects, correct? Or maybe not, but that's the way we've understood it, and that's the way we've used it. So again, that money's sitting there. We could do that, save ourselves some interest, issuance fees. And again, I don't know about financing it for them.
So, Trustee Hartmeyer, what's your opinion on that?
I would have to see the numbers for both scenarios. So I would want to see option A with the cash layouts and what that would look like, and option B so that we could make an educated discussion. Because what I'm hearing is I've heard some ballpark numbers. I've heard some high level numbers, but I'd like to get a little bit more details to what that would actually look like. So if we pay the $800,000, how long is it going to be before we get that money back? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? When do we get that money back, and what's the timeline for that? Because if we're tying up that capital for some period of time when we could be using it for something else, is that really the best use of those resources? So I guess I would want to see that, and then the cash outlay, if it goes through the Port Authority and what that looks like, and if the township does that and what that looks like for us. What's the return on that? Are we talking, if we do that and we finance it and we get the money back, how much money is that back a year? Are we talking hundreds of $1,000s? Are we talking tens of thousands of dollars? Is it something, you know, 40, 50, $60,000, hundreds of that? What is that money that we would be getting back on an annual basis? And what would that look like until, I guess, from interest payments? So before I could entertain supporting anything like that, I would want to get down to the brass tacks of what those numbers look like. Right now, I feel if we did that, that we would be voting on it somewhat blindly and conceptually, big picture, big numbers, but I'd like to know what that looks like and what all the implications are.
And you asked for that before. I'm surprised we didn't have that. That's almost exactly the same thing you said last month when I asked for it. You said you wanted more data, more information so you could see it. And I don't disagree with that.
So,
Okay.
so
The
could
numbers
we,
are all right here on this chart.
Well, that's one option, and I'd like to see both options. I'd like to see it side by side, and I'd like to see a synopsis of each one, what it is for choice A, what it is for choice B. But right now, that's a lot of money to tie up, and I think we need to I would think that we need to have more research on that before we can move forward with a decision either way.
so would you be comfortable getting that information, Mr. McAfee, and voting on it next month?
Oh, no, I'd have a special meeting to get that done.
Okay.
So we don't slow down the project. But it's all on here. It's in two different categories. It shows what the money, what the interest payments are that we're gonna make. And that was at 800,000, I think. I don't know.
But I also would like to see, like, what impact would that have on those funds that we're taking the money from?
The red,
Yes, and
it would deplete the whole account.
so, but are we dependent on that account for other things?
We haven't. Said we've only spent money out of the red account one time. And that was a great, did I say shell game? We paid for the project out of the red money, and Hamilton reimbursed us. That was our agreement, part of the whole
That
deal.
was the roundabout and
Roundabout and Wyden Gilmore Road.
Gilmore Road.
Well, it was just the roundabout. That was just the roundabout, right? And the improvements to Hamilton Mason Road, because we paid for Hamilton Mason Road. We paid that out of the tip. So we paid that 1 point whatever it was, and they paid us back. So that's the only expense we've had out of the red, because supposedly, and Mr. Geis and I both agree on this, it's not written anywhere that it has to be a project, but that's the way we've looked at it. So to me, those road improvements on Seward Road would be the project, which is what they're asking us to take debt from. And we don't have to take debt. We can pay it out of some other account. But that one, there's no money encumbered in the red account, is there, Ms. Vonderhaar? Because we don't have a project. We haven't appropriated any money.
Mr. Geis, could you comment on that as well?
And maybe mention that we have that library possible project there as well. The
Right, I
roadway.
mean, there,
Part of the road.
as far as the red, I think the board's well aware that I take the position that you could use that money for a project like that. Your motion, the motion tonight to use township resources for that, I don't want to say it's problematic, but I think that what you could do tonight would be to, because it's contemplated that the Port Authority is going to be the issuer of the debt. If the township, and again, I don't have the initials behind my name, I'm a financial person on that, but if the township were going to issue the debt, the township would not have to overcapitalize the project like another lending institution would have, because you're going to pay yourself back in that.
So that would
So-
save us money right there. Go ahead.
You wouldn't have to do that and you could issue it through the Port Authority. You could actually do that through the Port Authority, so that you would have a mechanism by which you already have the structure established by the repayment schedule, that everything in the developer agreement that you have in that. The issue that you have is, you take that money out and at one time, are you missing an opportunity, later in the future? And that's a decision for the board for the Board of Trustees in that, to make, as to whether or not they want to do that. Take $800,000 out and then look at a continuing source of revenue stream back to the board for that.
We have this debate now for how many years about paying cash or finance. Yeah, you can spend a whole lot more money and use your cash to make the payments over time. But the bottom line is, here's the debt service. In year 4, our payment would be $72,000. Year 5, 6, 7, it goes right on down for the first 10. Then it jumps to 156. This is the money we're going to have to pay out of some account, TIP account. Instead, that money could be going and be used for whatever project.
So is there,
So the other thing too is we're just getting this information tonight.
Right.
I've not had a chance to look at this. We just got this at the beginning of the meeting. So, and I'm not convinced yet that that's the way to go. And I don't know that I would be convinced at a special meeting in 2 weeks either. I need some more convincing that this is the right way to go.
So you, instead of paying cash for it, you'd rather finance.
I'd like to see what option A and what the bottom line number on that is and what option B is. And I want to know what the opportunity costs are. So would this make it, if we did this and took that $800,000, would that mean that we have to ask for a levy sometime sooner?
We're rid. It's rid money. We haven't
Right,
touched it.
but
We
if
haven't
we have
touched
to
it.
use, I get that, but if we were to have that $800,000, and for example, we are looking at having to build an additional road over on Gilmore Road to access the school property, which I believe we could use the RID funds for that, if I'm not mistaken.
I would
Okay.
take the
It could
position.
be a
So-
project too, yeah.
Right.
Maybe,
We
and
get about, what, $175,000 a year into the rid? I saw the email today, what is it, 170, Ms. Vonderhaar? $170,000 more is going to go in there this year, every year. Mr. Geis can get you the information so that you can
I
have
get
that
that.
informed opinion. Like I said, it's right here. I asked for it. We've seen this before, but it's been a while. The actual cost, and it goes through there and it talks about what the benefit is to the schools, what it costs, what the benefit is to the township, and to the developer. $5 million to the developer, 3.3 to us. I think it's an opportunity, and I know the door is closing.
is there
I
a
don't wanna hold up
time?
the Jed vote, but I really think this is an opportunity for us to do something like we've done on some of the other projects, make it an even better deal for us.
I think if you're going to do something, that you need to move this forward now, because with the passage of the legislation that you had tonight and all the other entities doing that, they're going to move forward with the project as proposed through the Port Authority, and then the Port Authority is going to go out and incur costs
Right.
associated with the issuance of debt. So if the board is contemplating it, and again, I think that you can do that in conjunction with the Port Authority. There'll be some cost associated with that, but significantly less
But we could also do
Cost.
it without that too, right?
to do that.
Right? We could do it without that. We don't have to issue debt.
I think you could go in, you could agree to structure it in a way, yes. It's possible to do that if the board wanted to.
And I know it's mentioned in there about the Port Authority being used, but we don't have an agreement with the Port Authority at this point, do we? We don't have an agreement with them to issue the debt for us or issue the debt on our behalf. Is it in the contract already that we're committed to pay them, even though we don't, or would we ever have a contract with them? They would just go ahead and do it on behalf of the developer? How does that tie into us?
There would be an agreement between the township and the Port Authority, because there would be, the Port Authority would want the commitment of the funds as a basis for the debt, because without that committed revenue stream, it would be in effect a junk bond. So, but yeah, I think in the agreement that it's contemplated that the township will cooperate with the Port Authority in the issuance of the debt, because we talked about, the township not issuing debt and the township not participating in that. We wanted a mechanism outside of the township where the township didn't have that obligation. So, and the Port Authority was the most logical choice to do that for that.
So we don't issue the debt, we let them do it. If we're gonna issue debt,
Correct.
we would use them as the mechanism to do it.
And you know, and again, they could issue the debt and the township could be the bank too,
Well, and again,
or not.
what you said before, if we borrow the money, we sell the bonds, we're gonna have to come up with that
Capitalized.
interest payment
It'll be capitalized
up
interest.
front. So that 800,000 just became a million, what'd you say, 1,000,001? That was what you said earlier?
It'll be $1.1 million or $1.2 million. Yes, right. Correct.
So now we've got $1.2 million to pay interest on for however long the bonds go. So you're gonna pay at least twice that over the life of the bond.
So,
Even at 3%.
Trustee McAbee, do you want to get with Mr. Geis and pull some numbers together for your scenarios so that the board can take a look at that and we can have some discussion around it? I would just like to see for the concepts that you have, what is that going to cost the township and which would be the better plan financially?
I mean, again, I think it's all right here. Mr. Geis can explain it better than I can. It's 800,000. That's what it's going to cost us. If you're talking about the loss of interest on that, we're not getting a lot of interest on that money now. But when you turn around and look at the payments that we'd be saving in 4 years, 70-some thousand, we never get that kind of interest on it in a year. So
I'd like to see some more numbers with different options to see what that looks like.
Is this fund now, is that money intended to be used someplace else, like for a future development? Is that what is being recommended, or?
The RID money or
Yeah, the RID money
Well-
that Mr. McAbee is wanting to use.
We can use that for some different things. And the thing too is if we use it, if we have other projects come up that we can utilize that RID funding for, it could help protect our general fund or some of the other funds that we might draw upon. So my concern is I want to not put a levy on our citizens. Financial times are tough enough as it is right now, and I would prefer to keep that as far down the road as possible. So anything we can do to keep that, it's going to come eventually, but I'd like to keep pushing it down the road. So that RID money gives us a little flexibility to move things into different categories there. So that's my concern, is locking up the money and not having that liquid state of the cash to use for other projects that might be important to us. And I get the point about the interest. I understand what you're saying. I get that. But I think we need to take a look at what the opportunity cost of locking that in and other funds that we could be drawing on. So perhaps we can also do that. And I'd like to see benefits and disbenefits for each of the proposed options and what that looks like.
But what kind of clock are we up against to keep this moving forward? I mean, what are we asking him to come up with, and what kind of time frame, so that we can make that decision before the Port Authority pulls the trigger on?
I can contact the folks at Hire and talk to them as well as the Port Authority and see what their timeframes are associated with. I would like them to list, the help of Andy Grossart or something like that.
Oh, that would be good. I wouldn't mind getting Andy's eyes on this too.
Yeah,
To give you that.
that's the guy that issues the bonds, so we know where he'll come down. But he'll give us the right numbers, and we can make that comparison.
Actually, he's not an underwriter. He's an MA. He's a financial advisor. He doesn't do underwriting.
Well, he'll agree with me then. Go ahead and get his opinion.
So if that's the direction to the board, if you want me to engage him to get you a comparison as to the issuance in a traditional manner that we talked about through the Port Authority, and then for the township to either self-fund that or to act as the bank for Port Authority.
Or just cash. Or just pay for it.
We would have to, again, I can continue there's going to have to be some dough and some obligation, right?
Well, we already obligated ourselves to $800,000 with the contract we just are getting ready to sign, right?
So
800,000. I mean, we talked about where we might get the money.
Okay, then, we're talking about two different things, and I don't want to get, related and locked here. If you're asking me just off the cuff, I would not recommend the township just paying for that and letting the TIF pay us back. Because what if the project doesn't move forward, what if the project is not a success, we don't have the minimum service payment agreement with the developer to do that where they have now. They have an obligation. to do
And we still want that. We
Well,
still want them to be obligated to the minimum payment.
that would require a note.
Probably, maybe, but
It could either be a contract or a note.
yeah, a contract would be fine. I see what you're saying, and I don't want to be stuck out there either.
Yes.
Okay, but if we issue those bonds and add the interest and all that, and then there's a problem, we're still stuck out there.
But we're not going to issue bonds.
Yeah, but we're guaranteeing them. We're going to make the payment out of that money, and of course, all we want is the flexibility to finance it or pay for it. We want them to make the same payment they're going to make anyway. Right. We talked about this.
So we could get this information and have a special meeting to vote on it.
And I don't even know that we need to vote on it, really. We're just saying this is what we want to do. We'd have to vote on it eventually, but it wouldn't have to be, we'd have to get back together and vote right away, I don't think. Once we decide that we just appropriate the money and spend it.
I think I would need to talk to, Nair and the Port Authority or whatever. And just tell them that we talked about it with them before. We have mentioned that that was a possibility.
Okay, good.
But I just want to understand the direction you're giving me, what you want me to produce.
Is that
I think so.
satisfactory to have them come
Yeah,
back?
our last choice is to do what we have to do, and that's issue $1.2 million worth of notes. We don't want to do that.
So, so with that being said, would it be sufficient? Because we have a motion and a second.
You need a motion to table.
So, or would he withdraw his motion? Would that be sufficient? Because we've already have a direction that we're going to get information.
I think a motion to table would be better since you
Okay.
have a motion and a second. If you do a motion to table, that means we can come back at the next meeting
Okay.
and vote on it again or not, whichever.
Motion to table.
Second.
Is this where we discuss it?
I think it was a good idea. I wanted to have that open discussion about that.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Like I said, we brought it up a month ago, and then I asked Mr. Geis for these numbers
don't have
today,
it.
and he sent it to me
Not
big
there.
enough that I could see it. And I was.
Yeah.
The box idea.
Okay.
We need to vote.
Yep.
Trustee Harkemaier,
Yes.
Trustee Birding,
Yes,
Trustee McAbee.
This is the motion to table.
to table, yes.
Other trustee comments, board comments?
The other thing I would say, Larry, is in that Exhibit B, I know we changed a couple lines at the top, right?
Yes.
I'd like to see that before it's all done, and we should probably make any reference, there are references to the TIF amended resolution, back more in there, all those need to come out, don't they?
Right. Oh, yes, they do.
Okay, okay. And I saw some of those, so. Thank you.
I just want to send my condolences to Ross Township with the loss of Tom Wilsey this week. He was a tremendous leader in Butler County, and I know he had a lot of influence on a lot of other trustees, and it's unfortunate. I won't have the opportunity to, my thoughts go out to Ross Township and to the Wilsey family. I do want to thank Mr. Bennett and Mr. Goins and Ms. Monahar for following up with the resident that expressed a concern with water in their backyard and debris in the creek and all those things. And you were very responsive. And so I do thank you for that. I hope everybody has a great Easter.
Okay, I've got a couple things. I attended the OKI meeting last month, and one of the, which is the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Transportation, And one of the interesting things is that the Brent Spence Bridge is looking like it's going to move forward. There's talk of a late 2023 groundbreaking. There's also talk of no tolls for that, which is important because there was concerns that people would go ahead and they would like use some of the other bridges to cross over. So they decided to make it no tolls. Now, what this means for us is that they are asking, OKI is asking for at some point down the road that we as a board issue a resolution in favor of the Brent Spence Bridge. There's a lot of residents that do traverse that bridge every day that to go to work or whatever. And so they're asking that different communities around do put a resolution forth. So that's something that we'll need to be doing at some point. Let's see. The city of Fairfield is doing an internship program where they're partnering with students from Fairfield High School, and they're bringing them in to do different internship jobs throughout the year. I think there was something in the paper about that. And I have asked Mrs. Vonderhaar to, I think, put it to the staff to see if it was something that we could do or that we were interested in doing. I wanted to let the board know about that too. My thoughts on that were they need to let us know if that's something that would be conducive to our business processes and if that would work for us. We're not under obligation to do that, and perhaps what we do is let Fairfield pilot it for a year and then see how that works, and then see if it's something that we would be interested in doing or not doing.
These are unpaid interns,
They're unpaid interns.
and they're learning about government and how it works. Is that
Right.
the thought process?
And there were some Fairfield. I think it's a bit of a time commitment, though. There would be multiple hours every month that they would be spending with us. So I would recommend that we let Fairfield do it this year and see how it works. And then perhaps next year, if it's something that we think would work for us, that we do that. And again, my primary concern is that staff is not being taken away from their core mission to facilitate this program. And we're not under any obligation to do this, but also some of the students, I did talk to Mayor Rodas about this, and some of the students were looking more for like economic development, and they have bigger departments in some cases for many of the things that the interns would be looking at doing. So we may or may not have the bandwidth to facilitate what they're looking to learn. Okay, the Butler County Township Association golf outing is scheduled for July 15th, so something to know. I also attended the Butler County Engineers Office hosted the Southwest Ohio Jobs Coalition meeting last week. This was great. They had people from all different communities that came in, Blue Ash, Springboro, all basically Southwest Ohio was in there, and the topic of discussion was jobs and getting people. It was focused quite a bit on public works, but we did also touch on police and fire, and everybody is experiencing the same things that we're experiencing with people and with staff. It was a great opportunity. We talked about some different best practices that people were doing, talked a little bit about wages, benefits, work-life quality, and kind of how the entire package is something that we have to consider in order to attract and retain key talent. So that's something we need to keep in mind as we move forward. Sarah Carruthers, our potential new state rep, depending on how the redistricting goes, did attend that with me. So I thought that was good for her to be a part of that. And then after that, she toured Fairfield Township with me. So I was very proud to show her all of the different things that we've been doing in our township. I did show her the community garden that Miss Maria is working on too. And Sarah was very positive and very engaged with Fairfield Township. So she's potentially our new state rep, and I was very appreciative and thankful that she took time to learn more about our township. I also attended the Rotary meeting last Friday, and here's some information. It's on the back table. This is information about the Butler County Challenger League. This is on the back table over there. And there's also the 2022 Rotary Drawdown, which will be on Friday, April 22nd at Bird's Bar and Grill. And this is one of their major fundraisers where they do the dictionary purchase. They do Christmas money for families out of this. So it's a good cause. That's there as well. And just also to another comment on Tom Wilsey, he was big in Butler County Township Association. He was also at the state level. He was on the Ohio Township Association. He was the president of that for many, many years. And he contributed a great deal to Butler County and to the state of Ohio. As a young trustee, he was someone that I would go and talk to about different issues in the township. And he was always a great resource and a very good man. And he is definitely, it's a big loss. So God bless him and God bless his family. That's all I have.
I just want to remind you, we have the North Hampton Crossing.
May 5th, is it? Yeah. And I do appreciate how I think our entire board is standing together with the interest of Fairfield Township. Yeah, that's on the 4th. Okay. In accordance with ORC 121.22, Section G8, I move that we go into executive session to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans or specific business strategy for economic development assistance or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance. Is there a second?
Second?
Trustee Harkemaier.
Yes.
Trustee Birding.
Yes.
Trustee McAbee.
Yes.
So action may or may not be taken as a result of executive session. Okay. Thank you all.
Get some caffeine on you for the ride home. Hi, guys. Good night. Thanks, Jim. Is the chair working? Okay. All right. Cool. You're welcome.